Our first question is from Osiris. Are the findings of an investigation considered public record, IP of the client or your own IP, before submitted to the court? That's a great question. Thank you so much for asking. I see a lot of people hopping in. If you have questions, let me know down in the comments or the chat down below. Your findings of your investigation are not considered public record before being submitted to court. Generally, if it's submitted to the court, it's going to be of public record. If it's not submitted to the court, no, it's not. Now, one of the things, good morning, Dave Drake. How are you doing? One of the things that I have noticed, or that I want to make you aware of, is even though it's submitted to the court, even though it may be considered part of the public record, if somebody requests that information, if there's personally identifying pieces of information in there in your report or whatever, like somebody's address, phone number, children's names, and this probably would include in many jurisdictions your IP address or someone else's IP address, those things would probably be redacted out. So just keep that in mind. I see a lot of people hopping in. If you have questions, go ahead and go down in the chat and let me know. Hello, Jeffrey. How are you doing this morning? Moving on to our next question. This one is from Jake Murphy. I got a couple from Jake. If someone got licensed as a PI and was looking to make some side cash while in college, in Virginia, you just take a 6-day class to get licensed. I was wondering if, as a side gig, you could do background checks from home. Generally speaking, if you're the state that you're in, and if you're in Virginia and it requires a license, you can't do background checks without that license. So you could do it as a side gig as long as you're licensed. This video is sponsored by OREP Insurance and Working PI Magazine. OREP is a leading provider of private investigator liability insurance. Visit orep.org for a quote today. And as far as doing it from home, some of that may be dictated by the licensing for your state. It may dictate what you can and can't do from a home office and stuff like that. So you want to kind of keep that in mind too. But generally speaking, if you're licensed, you can work from a home office. I work from a home office. Now I have a luxury that my house is over there. My garage is right next to me, and then my house, so I have to leave my house to go to work, but I do have my office at my house. So if you have any questions, hop down in the chat and let me know. Good morning, Manuel Otero. Good to see you. See a lot of people hopping in, so let me know what questions you have. Our next question is another one from Jake Murphy. He says, by an independent contractor, does that basically mean a lawyer's leg man? And as a general rule, independent contractor does not mean a lawyer's leg man. What it means, I'll try to explain it. Like my firm, I don't do all the work. I'm the only employee of my company. All of my companies are LLCs. I'm the only employee. I don't have anybody else. But I hire a lot of private investigators to do other things. For instance, most of my surveillance I don't do myself. I hire other people to do that. They are private investigators. They are then independent contractors, or what we often refer to as subcontractors. So they work on a subcontract basis. I have a contract that I have them sign that we go through. They have certain requirements like having to have insurance and different things like that to be able to be an independent contractor for me. But that's what we generally mean as an independent contractor. It means you're working for somebody, but not as a regular W-2 employee. You're going to get a 1099 for your taxes at the end of the year. And that's coming up. Tomorrow is the last day of the year. So next week I'll be working hard and heavy on the taxes, getting 1099s out to all of my subcontractors or independent contractors. So I hope that answers your question. If you have any questions, see a lot of people hopping in, go down in the chat down below and let me know. Our next question is from Kyle. He says, I have a tripod, monopod laptop and a company provided key fob camera. Covert camera, that's really good. A camcorder and an Android phone. Any other useful tools you can recommend? Thanks so much for that question, Kyle. It sounds like they got you pretty well set up. I would recommend going to my website, freeprivateinvestigatortraining.com. That link is right there. Or not the link, but the website is right there. I do have links down below. But I would say go there and go through my surveillance, go to the gear and go through the surveillance and see what other surveillance pieces of equipment I have. I would recommend blackouts for your windows. I would recommend a blackout curtain to hang behind you, or maybe one in front of you, things like that. Also, a DC to AC converter. I think I have one of those up there too. That's like one of those jumper boxes you can use to jumpstart somebody. But you can get those that have a couple of AC outlets on it to keep your cameras charged. And now a lot of them will have USB outlets as well, so you can use that. But I would highly recommend using some of those, and just again go through all of my gear there, and there's a lot of stuff there. So I hope that helps with that question. Let's look at our next question here. We've got some in chat. What's the best burner throwaway phones to avoid detection? What is the best overall scanner instrument to use to find hidden cameras? Great questions, White Viper. The best burner throwaway phones to avoid detection. I'm not sure what you mean by to avoid detection. So if you're talking about like from an RF scanner finding it or something like that, if it's transmitting, they're going to find it. If you're talking about just somebody not being able to look it up or something like that, any kind of a burner phone, go to your dollar store or something like that. A lot of PIs will use burner phones. Just get those and they buy the minutes. They buy a card with the minutes that they can put on it. So if you have to pretext somebody on a phone, I don't do that. I will just *667 the number, so then they don't get my number. That's kind of the easiest way to do that. What is the best overall scanner instrument to use to find hidden cameras? It's going to depend on what level you want. I mean, the best, I use the Andre Advanced Near Field Detection Receiver from REI, but that's not going to always find all hidden cameras because they may not be transmitting. The Andre Advanced Near Field Detection Receiver is something that is looking for something that's transmitting a radio signal. There's a lot of different devices to help you find the hidden cameras. Again, if you go to my website there, freeprivateinvestigatortraining.com, I've got in the gear section, I have a whole section on TSCM. There's some really good products there that I recommend for doing personal space, RF sweeps and stuff like that. Not to mention the lens detector, the professional hidden camera lens detector that I recommend as well. So I hope that helps there too. Another question we have there online, Manuel Ortera, can I make money with a CC license in Florida, or is it just intern license? Great question, Manuel, and I don't know the answer to that because I don't know all of Florida's regulations on licensing. I am a member of FOWLE, Florida Association of Licensed Investigators, but you don't have to be licensed in Florida. I am licensed in other states. So I'm a member of them, but I don't know all the intricacies of Florida's laws as to what you can and cannot do. What I would suggest to do is go to, and I believe it's FALI.org, FALI.org, Florida Association of Licensed Investigators. Go there, find out when they have a meeting in your area, and go to one of their meetings and start chatting with some of those people about what you can and can't do with that license. So I hope that helps, Manuel. I wish I could answer that, but I don't have all the answers. But I can at least point you to where some of those are. Going on to our next question. Again, if you have any questions, hop down in the chat down below and let me know. If you're watching this post, you can go into any of my videos in the comments, and you can leave a question in there too. Mulatto Vanguard, good morning to you too, sir. And yes, cheers. We've got our coffee going here. Thank you so much, sir. Our next question, it's a double because I had two similar questions from two people. Daniel asks, what online site do you use to do a background check on a person? And James says, What's your favorite PI search platforms, IRB, TLO, tracers, or others? Great questions. So my favorites, my personal go-tos, my first go-tos, and I've used all of them out there, but right now my primary go-tos is IRB Focus and IDI Core. Um, and the reason being is because right now I'm finding the best information from those two. And again, I've used all of them. Now that could change next week. That could change in a month. That could change in 6 months. I use them especially because of live auto information, live like license plates and stuff like that. And it's not live, but it's very close to live with IRB Focus right now that I'm finding out here in Colorado anyway. And that's what's important to me mostly because we do a lot of surveillance and things like that and locates and things, and people move their registrations of their vehicles and things like that when they move and things. So that's what's really important to me. So that's my primaries. I think they're all pretty good. IRB, TLO, tracers, IDI Core. Um, I use those for background checks as well. But a background check, you have to remember, goes into a lot more than what a database will provide. So I use Google very, very heavily in doing backgrounds because I'm trying to find other things on those individuals. Plus, I'm going to local courts. When I do a background, I might run a report, find out what states they've lived in, what cities they've lived in, and I'll go to those entities and I'll be running, criminal backgrounds on them and looking to see if they have court records and different things like that, and just doing general OSINT, open source intelligence investigations on them as well. So I hope that helps out. If you want a little more on that, go to the YouTube channel page for the PI guy and go into my videos, and you can search for backgrounds and databases, and I have a lot of videos that have a lot more information in there. So I see a lot more people hopping in. Go ahead, hop down in that chat and let me know what questions you have, and I will try to get to them. If you're watching this post, you can go into any of my comments on any video and ask a question as well. Our next question here is from Christopher. Hey, you should buy a mini air conditioner and a mini heater for that AC/DC charger you got, or would that drain the battery too much? Christopher was watching a video I was making about staying cool or staying warm, depending on the temperatures out there, and things that you can do. And a lot of the things, like in the summer, I have a device called a Swampy that I can put water in. It's a little personal space cooler. You have to be able to vent those out and stuff, using fans, using a lot of different things to stay cool, wet rags, making sure you have cool drinks, different things like that. You can get mini air conditioners and mini heaters, but they would drain one of those. And again, what I use for my AC/DC converter is one of those jumper boxes that you can jumpstart somebody, emergency jumpstart, but it has some AC plugs on it, so I can plug things into there. But that would absolutely drain those probably in minutes, if it would even run it. It probably wouldn't even have enough amps to really run one of those. So I wouldn't recommend that. I never run anything on my vehicle's DC because I can't take the risk of that battery draining. And when I first got started, all I did was surveillance. Here's a little secret. I'm almost ashamed to admit it, but I had multiple times where I was charging things and running my air conditioner and different things like that, and I got stranded. I went to start my car and it would not start. So I had to, get a jump start or something. That's why I started carrying those boxes. And then I realized, well, hey, they've got AC outlets on them, so I can use those to charge my camera and charge my other devices. So, or run a laptop or something like that. So I don't think you could do that. And I know you can get some massive systems. So if you want to build a surveillance van or a surveillance vehicle, if you're doing it all the time, but you could spend thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars on a vehicle to make sure that it's the perfect vehicle with air conditioning and heating and everything like that. So I would never go to that expense. But thank you so much, Christopher. See, a lot of people have hopped in. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat down below. I will try to get to as many as I can. I see Jeffrey Wilkinson. How can I find pending lawsuits? That is, if someone is being sued, is there a database that shows all plaintiffs and defendants? Great question, Jeffrey. The answer is yes, there are databases out there. Generally speaking, it's going to be state specific. So you'd want to go on Google your state and court records. Here in Colorado, it's called CoCourts. It has most of the stuff that's in there in the court system. So if there's a current or a past lawsuit or something, it's going to be in there. It's going to show criminal. It's going to show civil. It's going to show everything in there. So you can go in there. You can get docket information. That's not necessarily going to show all the plaintiffs and all the defendants and things like that, but it's going to give you an idea. So now you know, Jefferson County, there's a court case pending with my name on it. I can go there and I can get the records, or a client's name or something like that. You can go there and get the records. So that's where I would start looking for something like that. So great question, Jeffrey. Hurricane Sporter says, I'm doing a criminal background check for an employer. Are you providing the employer with printouts of your findings? Are there certain things that are not supposed to be included in the background check? Great question, Hurricane. I'll try to address this as much as I can. I would also suggest go to my regular channel page, YouTube channel page, and go to my videos. I have a lot of videos out there. You can just search for backgrounds. And I have a lot of videos out there on doing them, but I don't provide them with the printouts of my reports. In fact, doing that is generally going to be against your EULA, your end user license agreement, with all those databases that we talked about, IRB, TLO, IDI Core, all of them, tracers, skip smash, or whatever. Most of them, you are not allowed to just print that out and provide it to your client. You can extrapolate the information and provide that to the client. Now, you have to keep in mind, this is hearsay information that's in those. It's not necessarily accurate, so you need to make sure that you cross-reference all that stuff. So if you're doing a background check and you find criminal information on somebody, you want to go to those jurisdictions, those counties, those states, those towns, things like that, and cross-reference that and make sure that it's actually accurate information. I would never include anything in a background check that's personally identifying to somebody for like a marital situation or something like that. So if somebody's looking for somebody and that's not necessarily a background, but like in a locate investigation, if I'm doing a locate to serve somebody, I'm not necessarily going to always provide that address. I want to be careful not to do that. And I don't provide personal identifying information for other parties in there. Now, if you're doing background checks, you have to be really, really careful. If you're doing background checks like for employment or for anything financial related, credit or anything like that, rentals, stuff like that, there's only certain things that you can report to that. And that's why I say go to the channel and do a search, because I have some fairly in-depth videos on what you can and cannot report. But there's a whole lot of stuff in there that gets very complicated, like if you start reporting stuff older than 7 years. In some states, like California, it's very restrictive. There's certain criminal things you can't report, period. Or if it's older than 3 years and different things like that. So generally what I'm going to do is only put the pertinent information that they need. And again, if you're doing a criminal background on somebody and it's for employment or for a rental or anything like that, you need to really make sure that you follow the guidelines that are required in there. So I hope that helps, Hurricane. If you have any questions, hop down in the chat down below and let me know. I see a lot of people hopping in. Good morning, everybody. This is my last live stream this year. I won't be back on next Saturday. But this is the last chance this year you're going to get to ask me a question at a live stream here. So our next question here is from Brad. Have you ever worked a child abduction case? Yes, Brad, I have. I've worked on multiple ones. Usually for private investigators, child abduction is going to be something in the case of a parent running away with a child, a divorce situation, a separation where mom takes the kids, runs to another state, or dad does, or I've had some that was grandparents and things like that. We've had some that were missing persons, missing children, that there was fear of abduction, and so we do work those. They get very complicated. I don't do a lot of videos on them, just because they're very sensitive a lot of times in nature. So I do some videos, but they're going to be more about a locate versus a child abduction or something like that. But we do some of those with my firm. Our first question is from Rooster. He says, "How do I get my own iPhone text that someone deleted off of my phone by them proving they falsely accused someone to the police?" Great question, Rooster. It's probably possible to do that. Some keywords in there, probably impossible. Usually when things are on a computer or anything like that, a phone, a tablet, whatever, when you delete it, it's not really deleted. And I'll give you kind of the easy terminology or explanation of how that works. If you're a techno geeko out there and you're going to explain it better, go ahead and hop down in the comments or the chat and let me know. But basically, a file gets written to your hard drive, and it's got an address, and that's, or to the SD drive or whatever. And when you delete it, it doesn't get deleted. It's still sitting there. What happens is it has an index that says I'm right here. And so that index gets changed. So it says don't show this, but the file is still there. So if you go to a computer forensic expert, they are able to go in and usually find that. Now, if it gets overwritten, and they don't usually get overwritten all at once, they'll get overwritten a piece at a time. So some parts of it might still actually show up. But if you go to computer forensics expert and just search for computer forensics private investigator in your city or your state, and you'll probably come up with somebody then, and hopefully that they can help you get that off of there. Solar flares had several questions, so I just put them all together here. Do all recording devices give off a heat signature? Solar flares was looking at a video on this, and this is another one from Night Security. This is the KT1000. They have the KT5000. They are little recorders. This is an awesome little recorder. And again, if you go to freeprivateinvestigatortraining.com, go to my surveillance section, you'll find these types of recording devices. So Solar is saying, do all of these give off a heat signature? As far as I know, yes, they give off some kind of a heat signature because they have a battery, and I don't know how they would run without a battery. So they're usually going to have some type of a heat signature. So as far as I know, yes. The next question on there is, where is the best place on a vehicle to place a GPS tracker? I'm not going to tell you where to put a GPS tracker, but I can tell you some of the places that we look first when we're doing a vehicle sweep. We look everywhere on the vehicle because they could be anywhere. But common places are the OBD2, onboard diagnostic port, up underneath the dash. You can go and you can get trackers, unfortunately, for very cheap, 60, 70 bucks, that plug right in there, and they're powered by the car. They start tracking as soon as they start the car. They even make Y cables for them, so you can plug it into the OBD2, and it actually has another OBD2 port extender, so if somebody needs to plug in the computer to get diagnostics off of the car, they can do that. But then you can put the tracker off on the side. So we always check there. We always check under floor mats, in the door compartments, anywhere, glove boxes, anything like that, because like tile trackers or Apple AirTags are very common. Under the wheel wells, up underneath the car, anywhere where there's magnets, or someone could stick a magnet where there's bare metal, in the spare tire areas, just about anywhere in the car. And the next question from Solar Flares, does an IR flashlight or infrared flashlight work for camera detection? And I don't know. They may. I've never tried that. I think it would have limited success. What I usually suggest, again, if you go over to my web page at freeprivateinvestigatortraining.com and you go to the PI gear section, you'll find this device, the Spy Finder Pro. This is really, really good. It does use infrared, but it's colored infrared. So possibly a infrared flashlight would help, but I'm not sure. I've never tried one of them myself. See a lot more people hopping in. If you have any questions, go ahead and hop down in the chat and let me know. I'm going to try to get to as many as I can today. The last question from Solar: do your trail cams have time and date stamps? Again, on my web page in the PI gear section in the surveillance, I have some trail cams that I use. And yes, they do have time and date stamp, but I don't believe they are on the video. They are in the metadata. So it has to be set up in the device, and then it'll put it in the metadata. And then if you have special software, you can pull that out and you can timestamp it on the video. So I hope that that helps as well. And then we have another question here from the sheriff. I'm an investigations manager for a major PI company. Something the investigations I manage struggle with is pretexting. Any suggestions on how to get them more comfortable with the practice? That's a great question, Sheriff. I actually have some videos about pretexting. If you want to go to the main page on my YouTube channel, you can search there for pretexting. I highly suggest for people not to pretext. And again, it's going to depend on a lot of different things, but some states, a lot of states out there, they have different laws that define whether you can or you can't. And you're probably doing, I'm assuming, a lot of like workers' comp or slip and fall, a lot of injury related stuff. You start getting pretty scary in the HIPAA area and stuff like that when they go in and do that. Plus, they could easily get burned or they're confronted. I don't usually pretext outside of, on occasion, I might pretext if I'm trying to see if somebody's home, using the lost kitty routine where I pull up a picture of a lost kitty on my phone and I'm going door to door. I literally go to every door on the street, go up to my subjects and just say, hi, I live down the street. I was wondering if you saw my lost kitty or my lost puppy or something like that. But I don't use it very often. One of the things here in Colorado, and a lot of states have this, if the subject is represented by legal counsel, they cannot be contacted by anybody involved in any legal matters. So that really precludes, that's like here in Colorado, if I'm working a workers' comp case and they're probably represented, I'm not doing a pretext. It's not so much that I'm not comfortable with it. It's just that I'm not going to lose my career and lose my job and things like that. And I know for you, that's probably really tough because you really like to have those pretexts done to make sure that they're there. But I do have some videos on how to do pretexting. I would say take a look at those and maybe send those links to your investigators. And if you want, Sheriff, if you're looking for investigators out there, if you want, go ahead in the chat and or in the comments of my video and let us know what your company is and what states you might be looking for investigators, just if you want to do that. You don't have to, but I hope that helps. Our next question, if you guys have questions, hop down in the chat below. Again, if you're watching post live, you can go into any of the comments and you can put in a question, and I'll try to get that into a future live stream. From Bixen is our next question. Hi, I need information on how to start up. How do I get a PI license? That's a great question too. Again, if you go to my channel page, let me pull it up really quick here. There's a lot of hopping back and forth over to the old intraweb. But if you go back over to my main page here, you can just search license. And in here, I'm going to have a lot of different videos on how to get your license. And if you go on my Discord, I believe I have a list on there for people that has links for most of the states where you can get information about your license. The big thing with it all, though, is every state is a little different. So what I usually recommend for people would be to just search for your state and private investigator licensing, or state and business licensing. Whoever regulates all your other licenses, like for plumbers, electricians, things like that, they're probably the one place to go to get your PI license, so they can help you. Or go to your state PI association. Most state PI associations will have information about how to get your license. They may even have classes to help you train to get that, because some of them can be quite complicated. So you might go to again to Google and type in your state and Private Investigators Association and see what comes up there. Our next question, again, if you have questions, hop down in the chat and let me know. Another one from Rooster: is it legal to carry on your person in public to protect against false allegations? And that's, again, another question about one of these devices. This is the Night Security KT1000 audio recorder, a great little recorder. Weighs like 4 ounces, I think, something like that. But Rooster saying, if I stick this in my pocket, is it okay for me to record conversations? And the simple answer is, it all depends. And unfortunately, that's a simple answer to a lot of things when it comes to private investigations. It all depends. And it's going to depend on your state laws. For instance, here in the state of Colorado, we are a one-party state. And what that means is one party to the conversation needs to know that the conversation is being recorded. So if I'm in a group of 10 people, I can have this in my pocket and it can be recording as long as I'm a part of that conversation. Now, if I'm sitting next to a group of 10 people, I can't record their conversation. Now, there's some caveats to that one party rule too here in Colorado. If you are working for an attorney, you have to abide by their ethics rules and regulations and laws. And in Colorado, an attorney cannot surreptitiously record somebody. So if you're working for an attorney, you can't do that. You have to let them know. But if it's just me and you, if I'm working an infidelity case or a workers' comp case or something like that. Now, if I'm working a workers' comp case, I'm probably not going to be talking with somebody. But if I'm doing a door knock, if I'm doing interviews, things like that, and I'm not working for an attorney, I can have this in my pocket. And you as a private citizen can as well, as long as you abide by the laws in your state. So I would say check into that as far as whether you can or cannot. So I hope that helps. And if you want to check this out, or the KT9000 or KT5000, I mean, which is a little bigger one, you can do that on my website at freeprivateinvestigatortraining.com. Our next question, and if you have any questions, hop down in the chat and let me know. Again, if you're watching after the live stream, go into the comment of any of my videos and you can ask questions. That's where I get a lot of these. So you can put them in there and I'll try to get it up on a future live stream. Johnny Lego says, excellent video. Wanted to know, do PIs who investigate cheaters send a woman in who pretends to be a date? A great question. And this almost sounds like Hollywood kind of stuff. This is something you would see on TV. It is something that I do know some PI firms do. They may not send them in to be a date necessarily, but they might set up a woman at a bar, let's say, where a man frequents to see if he might, try to hit on her or something like that. My company, we don't do a lot of that. We do some infidelity and cheating spouse stuff, but it usually revolves around some other things like a lot of money, child custody, different things like that. But we don't necessarily do that. But I do know some private investigation firms that might send somebody in a situation like that to see if they happen to try to pick them up or flirt with them or anything like that. So I hope that helps you answer your question, Johnny Lego. From Raymond Bellick, he says, I love these kind of videos out in the field collecting evidence. He was watching one of my live surveillance videos. I do these live streams on Saturday, but sometimes I will do a live recording of a video or of a case while I'm out on a surveillance or doing process serves or something like that. And I was doing one of those and that's what he was watching. And he says, I'm wondering if you use your own vehicle or do you use a rental vehicle? Commercial vehicle insurance is expensive here in Canada, but it is an agency policy requirement for the general liability and the E&O. If you don't have it, an attorney can use it to attack your credibility. I suspect finding out my identity and home address would also be harder with a rental. What do you think, John? Great question. I see people hopping in. If you have questions, hop down in the chat below and let me know. I will try to get to as many as I can. Great questions there, Raymond. Thanks so much. Going on the rental vehicle, I don't do it very often. I have a vehicle that I primarily use as my surveillance and my investigation vehicle. We have another one that is our daily driver, if you will, for the family. But I have my own. There has been occasions that I do use a surveillance vehicle if I'm totally burned on a case, but I don't think my face is burned. I don't think they've seen me, but they've seen my vehicle. I might go out and get a rental car, depending on the case, depending on the circumstances, things like that. I might go out and get a rental car. You're absolutely right. If you have a rental car, it's going to be a lot harder for them to be able to find out where you're living at and things like that. It's going to depend on how often you're going to get that rental car as far as the cost and things like that. Is that built into your business model? Rental cars can get quite expensive, so you want to make sure that that's built into your business model. As far as insurance, commercial vehicle insurance is expensive here in the United States too, and there are certain requirements for that for us as well. And that's going to kind of depend a lot on your licensing and on your general liability and your errors and omissions, insurance policies and things like that. But it's going to be expensive if you go out and get commercial vehicle insurance. If you've got a rental car, generally they're not covering, I don't think a lot of people realize this, but when you just get the regular insurance, when you just rent the car and you don't get extended insurance or something, it may not cover you for if you're using that vehicle for work purposes. You should be using it to commute from one place to another. So you might actually need to get more insurance for that rental car that could cost even more. It would be definitely harder for them to identify who you are and where you live. It shouldn't be real easy for anybody to do that anyway. I try to, when I'm on surveillance, stay back far enough so they wouldn't be able to see my license plate and things like that. But if they do, they'd probably have to hire another private investigator, have a legal purpose to be able to run that license plate and things like that. I've never had anybody that I know of find me, so I don't worry about that as much. But I know if you are, then getting a rental car or getting a plate, and there are some places here in the States, I don't know about Canada, but some states you are able to apply for certain types of jobs and things like that to be able to not have your vehicle information put into the public database anyway. Going on to our next question. I see a lot of people hopping in. If you have questions, hop down in the chat below and let me know. I'm going to try to get to as many as I can. Our next one is from Mark. True or not, for video detection, a lens detector will work just okay? Great question, Mark. And what Mark was looking at, let me hop over here to the whole intraweb really quick. What he's talking about is, if you go to my webpage, freeprivateinvestigatortraining.com, go up here to PI gear, and in my bug detector TSCM section, there's this device right here, like a spy finder. And some of these others have that night security one, comes with a lens detector, the RD30 from Lawmate and the RD10. Those are great devices. They come with a lens detector built in. Or I sell this one right here, which is the Spy Finder Pro, which is just a lens detector. And what Mark is asking about is this a lens detector? Is that enough to be able to just find hidden cameras? And the quick answer to that, Mark, is no, that's definitely not enough to be able to do it, because that will find the lens on many cameras, but definitely not all cameras. In fact, I just had a video not too long ago on finding hidden cameras where I showed a hidden camera that we use for training that has a lens that's shielded that will not find at all. And if that camera isn't transmitting, an RF detector isn't going to find it either. The RD30 has some technology built into it to be able to, if you run it across a camera that is powered and running, it will detect that as well. But there is no one quick, easy thing that gets everything. A lens detector is good in certain cases. It's good for a quick sweep if you want to look around, because chances are if somebody popped in a hidden camera in an Airbnb or a hotel room or something like that, they didn't go out and spend a lot of money on that camera to make it, make sure they had one that wasn't easily detectable. So for a lot of things, that's good. But if it's too high up or hidden really well, a lens detector isn't going to probably help you find it. So I hope that helps. I see a lot of people hopping in. Go ahead and go down in the chat. Let me know your PI industry related questions. If you're watching this post again, go ahead and put it in the comments, and I will try to get that into a future video for you. Bent Roeder asks, so how often do you get deposed or called to testify about your report and or surveillance? Again, talking a lot about like workers' comp and stuff like that. And the surprising answer to this is not very often. I haven't had to give testimony, but maybe a dozen times in 15 years. Usually, if your report and your video is done properly, it's going to be done well enough that they can use that to negotiate the deal with the claimant. The insurance companies will usually prefer to work out a deal with them, or you get so much information that it's very damning and it's going to prove to them that they just need to drop their case, because they have it against them. So it doesn't happen very often. I would say maybe a dozen times over, maybe, I'm going to take a wild guess, somewhere in the 800 to 1200 cases that I've done on like workers' comp and that kind of stuff. So not that often. Going on to our next question here. See people hopping in. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat down below. Let me know what they are. Good morning to everybody. Fiona says, curious why having a PI search these databases usually costs a lot of money. Fiona was watching a video that I had about private investigator databases, and I've got multiple videos out there. You can go to my channel page and you can find a lot of them out there. I have about free databases and paid databases and things like that. And she's saying she wonders why when PI search these databases, why they cost a lot of money. And it's kind of a complicated answer here. I'll try to stick with me on it. The cost isn't for just running the database search. The cost is for the accessibility to the database. And the cost, like any other business that has costs, there's overhead that needs to be covered and expertise and things like that. I'll kind of explain it like this. If you take your car to the mechanic and you need a new starter put on it, that starter, you might be able to go down to your local auto parts store and buy it for $90. That mechanic is going to buy a premium starter with certain value add to it, like lifetime warranty and different things like that. Plus, they know where to get it. They know how to get it fast. They know how to make sure that it's the right one. So they're going to add a premium. They're going to charge you what's called list price. So you might be able to buy it for $90. They might be able to buy it for $75, but they're going to charge you $150 for it. And that's the value add in there for them getting that service and being able to have it. Plus, they have business expenses that they have to cover. They have rent, they have the lights, they have telephone, and all of that gets built into all of the fees for a private investigator, not just running a report. So when it comes to like the report, what I generally do, and I don't know how everyone does it, but like if you wanted a comprehensive background report on somebody, I'm going to run a comp report on multiple 2, 3, 4 or more databases. I'm going to get all that information. I'm going to sift through it. I'm going to find the pertinent information that you need. I'm going to cross-check it. I'm going to build you a custom report, and that's what you're going to get. So it's not just running that report. And nobody out there should be going on any of these databases like IDI Core, IRB, TLO, any of those, and just running a comp report and giving it to the client. First of all, that's against your EULA, your EULA, your end user license agreement. When you signed up for it, it said you wouldn't do that. You go in and get the information you need and you provide that information to your client. But then you need to qualify that. You need to cross-reference that, check court records, do different things like that. So really the cost of that, I might go out and run a comp report that costs me 25 bucks or 35 bucks. And I might charge you for a comprehensive report as a client 150, 250 bucks, depending on how deep I have to go. But that's how much time did I put into it? How much time did I spend deciphering all of the information, cross-referencing all the information, verifying the information, things like that. So I hope that that kind of explains a lot of that. But a lot of what you're paying isn't as much like, well, they did a search and it cost them $2 on a database to do a search and they charged me 150 bucks. They also probably cross-referenced that, ran it in multiple databases, or hopefully they were, and they were coming up with multiple pinpoints for an address for somebody or a phone number or something like that. So I hope that that answers that question. Trickster Joy says, probably won't see this. Well, Merry Christmas, Trickster. I did see it, and I'm going to have it up here on the video. Have you ever encountered or heard of an encounter where you or they dealt with a counter PI? Probably has a different official name or something, but someone hired and who worked specifically to try to counter the work of a PI, sort of half bodyguard, half Karen. Sorry for all you guys out there, all you gals named Karen. Not my words, from Trickster Joy, but he does say for a lack of a better word. Yes, my company does different things in that. One of them is counter surveillance. So if somebody believes they're being surveilled, they can hire us to do counter surveillance. Sometimes executives will hire us to do counter surveillance. Sometimes it's more of a due diligence kind of a thing to make sure it isn't happening. We get a lot of calls for it. We don't do a ton of the work because a lot of people don't want to pay the cost, and it does get expensive. It's just like any kind of surveillance to do counter surveillance. My company also does TSCM, technical surveillance countermeasures, or what people often refer to as bug sweeps. So that is another countermeasure. If you thought a private investigator, had a GPS tracker on your vehicle, you could hire us to check out your vehicle and see if it's got a tracker or things like that. So the work is definitely out there. It is not as plentiful. It's very profitable, but it's not as plentiful. So I would say like counter surveillance, maybe 10% of what our surveillance business is. So there's definitely stuff out there, Tricky. So I hope that helps. What about ones from user NG8? What about ones that can be blended into walls? And again, he's talking about cameras and recording devices and things like that. I've spoken to a PI recently, and they said that it is possible. It's just not the usual circumstance. Can you put cameras in walls? Can you put hidden recording devices in walls? Yeah, probably. But a camera is still going to have a lens. It's still going to be visible. Remember that lens detector, probably going to be able to be found with that. I have seen camera lenses as small as like the end of a pen. Usually they're going to be at least in a hole, though, that's this size, because they've got to have some protection and different things like that around there. But you're usually going to be able to see something in a general wall, like the one back behind me that you see. It would probably stand out in there. If it's a highly textured wall, might be a little easier. If it's got wallpaper or something, might be a little easier to hide. But usually it's going to be able to be detected like by a lens finder or an RF detector if it's transmitting. If it's not transmitting, or it does have like a coated lens or something like that, then it's probably giving off a heat signature. So when we run the RF, the infrared, on it, we're probably going to find it then. And then we also have a nonlinear junction detector, which is a device that's looking for, nonlinear junctions. It can find most pieces of electronics, whether they are on or off, working or not working, transmitting or not transmitting. The problem with a nonlin, though, is usually you're running a very small area that you're scanning, and you got to cross over your paths, and you got to go very, very slow. So the average house, if two technicians went in to sweep it and you're using a non-lin, you'd probably want two, so one can do other things while one's running the non-lin. There's other things that have to happen. It would probably take a week to sweep an entire house, all the walls, all the floors, all the ceilings, all the surfaces. So it's not something that we take into every sweep, only ones where we might need to have a specific area that we need to check. So it is possible. It's very likely not probable. Like what I often tell my clients when it comes to bug sweeps, with all the equipment that we have, we can probably find 90% or more of the bugs out there. That other 5% or so that we can't find, that probably means the KGB, the CIA, the IRS, something like that is watching. And I don't necessarily want to know about those. Now, I know people that love to go in and look for those higher tech things like that. So there are companies that do that. But my company doesn't necessarily focus on those as much. Our next question is from Wheezy. Good morning, John. How do I get a contract with the courthouse to find heirs of people that died? For example, like the tax deed department at the clerks or any government contract that need PIs. Thank you so much, Wheezy, for the question. It's a great question. If you're looking for government contracts, usually of any kind, they're going to go through a bid process. A lot of states will have outlines of how, whether it's municipalities or counties or courts or whatever, or the state themselves, of how they have to do the process to put that out there. So I would check with the state about the processes of how government contracts are handled in that state. You might also just call the county. Now, from my experience, though, from your example here, looking at like tax deeds and stuff like that for somebody that might have died, the county probably has their own ways to do it. The county clerk's office is going to have access to a lot of the databases that private investigators have access to and things like that. So they're going to be able to do that. Plus, they may have their own investigators. Plus, if they're part of the county, they have a built-in investigation firm right there called the Sheriff's Department. So they have their own ways to be able to do that. So they may not necessarily be outsourcing that. But if they do, you can just call them and ask them what that process is. But generally, that process is going to be a bid process, and it's not going to be a per job bid. So if it was something like this, it would be like you're going to bid for all of these or a portion of these for a year or 2 years or 3 years or 5 years. And then they're going to take in all the bids and they're going to have a contract process and they're going to go into that. And then you're going to get them. And then when they get it, they're going to give you whatever portion you get. So you're going to have to bid that. So I hope that helps, Wheezy. Our next question comes from across the pond here from Carlin. I came upon your wonderful YouTube channel while investigating the best method for securing a PI. Wondering if you have any tips and tricks for sourcing a PI, specifically looking for one in London. Many thanks and very appreciative for the work you are putting out. Thank you so much, Carlin. And we're going to hop back over here to the old intraweb really quick. And I'll share this page with you, a couple of pages for you. The ABI is the Association of British Investigators. That's theabi.org.uk. Again, that's theabi.org.uk. And this is the National Association for British Investigators, if for a lack of a better way to say it. But you can go there and you can check them out. There is a way to be able to find an approved investigator. You can come right in here and you can type in London, and you can come here and say, well, we're looking for London surveillance investigators, and you can search the UK, and then it's going to give you this. And I'll just scroll through, give a little bit of free publication publicity for some folks out there. ESA Risk Process Services Limited. I don't know any of these people. I'm not affiliated with any of these people. I don't know if they're any good. You would have to do some searching and research yourself. But you can see there what level they are. This one's a full member. They've been a member since 2017. So you can start to get some information, get their phone number, their website, their email, and different things like that. And you can see what they do. Another one that you might go to is WAD, the World Association of Detectives. And this is at wad.net. And you can go to there. You can learn a little bit about them on their About page, but you can also find an investigator on their webpage. And again, lots of things that you can search by. You can search by their name, you can search by their city, their postal code, but you can also come in here and select the region. So I can go to the United Kingdom and I can search there. So either one of these associations would be great places for you to be able to go to and start looking for something like that. So I hope that helps, as well as just Googling and looking there. See a lot of people hopping in. We've got one more question here. If you have any questions, hop down in the chat and let me know. I'm going to try to get to as many as I can as well. If it's if it's after the production of the live stream, you can put it in any of the comments. So Orlando says, do you have any devices that can detect biochips, any other types of high-tech surveillance, such as ones that involve radiation? Thank you so much, Orlando. I don't really have anything like that. And just to kind of let everybody know, what he's talking about is things like a biochip. A lot of people have told me, I don't know if it's true, but a lot of those 3-letter agencies, if you ever work for them, some of them, especially if you're a field operative, you might end up getting a biochip put in. So he's talking something like that that's actually in your body. I talked earlier about like a nonlinear junction detector, which is a device that we do have, but you'd never want to use that on a body for a couple of reasons. One, it is sending out a high-powered RF signal, so you could actually hurt somebody. But also, your body is nothing but a big bag of water, so if there's a biochip in your, chances are something like that's not going to find it, because like a nonlinear junction detector is looking for the harmonics that are bouncing off of nonlinear junctions, and that's not going to work well with all of that water. So not really a whole lot. Now, if you are talking about radioactive, like microwave, depending on the level that you're talking about and stuff, I'm going to hop back over to the intraweb here, back over to the official PI Guy webpage, freeprivateinvestigatortraining.com. Got the link right there. If you go up here to the PI gear and you go to my TSCM bug detectors, go there. There is a device, this one right here from Night Security, the KT9000 RF bug detector. And I did a video on this too. You can go to my channel and you can search and you can find this. This actually goes up to 12 gigahertz. It goes up into that microwave range of transmissions. So you can use it to look for anything that's transmitting that high. You can use it to see how much energy is coming out of your microwave oven if you want, or anything like that. So this may be something that you would want to look into for something like that. But other than that, I wouldn't really have anything. I'm sure there's devices out there that governments use and stuff like that, in the spy business, the real spy business, state versus state, but nothing that I would actually have.